You ever just look at a massive, ancient tree and wonder? I mean, really wonder. We see them all the time, but they're holding on to one of the most incredible secrets on the entire planet. Today, we're going to unlock that secret, and it all starts with a surprisingly simple question. So here it is. Picture a giant 20-ton oak tree. Where did all that stuff come from? All that wood, all that bark, the leaves, what is it actually made of? Now your first guess, like most people's, is probably the soil, right? It makes sense. The tree's roots are in there, it must be pulling its food out of the ground. But that's not it. In fact, if you were to weigh the soil around a tree when it's a sapling, and then again when it's huge, you'd find the soil's weight barely changes at all. So if not the ground, then where?
Okay, get ready for this, because the answer is just mind-blowing. That massive tree is built, for the most part, out of thin air. Seriously, it literally pulls carbon dioxide right out of the atmosphere. And with a little help from sunlight and water, it performs this kind of everyday magic. And that magic has a name: photosynthesis.
See, photosynthesis isn't just about making tree food. It is the fundamental process that powers almost all life on Earth. It's where our food comes from, it's where the oxygen we're breathing right now comes from. It's not just an engine, it's the planet's power plant. To really get how this works, we've got to zoom in, and I mean way, way in. We're going to go from this giant forest down into a single green leaf, and then even deeper, into the microscopic world inside just one plant cell.
And here we are. Welcome to the chloroplast. The best way to think of this little green blob is as a tiny self-contained factory. This is the specialized place inside the cell where the entire incredible operation of photosynthesis takes place. All the tools, all the machinery, it's all right here.
And inside this factory, you've got this brilliant division of labor. It's broken into two main parts. First, you have these stacks of discs, the thylakoids. Think of those as the factory's solar panels. Their whole job is just to capture raw energy from the sun. Then, all that energy gets sent out onto the main factory floor. That's the stroma, this fluid-filled space where the actual assembly line is going to build the final product.
So you can think of this whole thing as a two-act play. Act 1 is all about capturing that raw energy. It's fast, it's powerful, and it is totally dependent on light. This is what's happening over at the solar panels, in the thylakoids.
But before we dive into that, let's ask a really basic question that actually gets to the heart of the whole process. Why are plants, well, green? It's not an accident, and it's not just for looks. Their color is a direct clue about how they deal with sunlight.
And this chart shows you exactly why. The pigments in plants, especially chlorophyll, are amazing at absorbing light in the blue and red parts of the spectrum. I mean, they just soak that energy up. But they're not very good at absorbing green light. So what do they do with it? They just reflect it away. It bounces right off. The color we see is the light the plant didn't want. That's why they look green to us.
So here in Act 1, 3 huge things happen really, really fast. First, those pigments absorb all that useful red and blue light. Second, that energy is immediately used to split water molecules. And this is the exact moment that the oxygen we breathe is created and released as a byproduct. And third, all that captured solar energy gets packed into 2 special high-energy molecules, ATP and NADPH. The easiest way to think about these is as tiny, fully charged batteries. The factory has just charged them up, and now they're ready to be shipped over to the assembly line to power the real construction.
Which brings us to Act 2. We're moving away from the solar panels and out onto the factory's main assembly line. In the stroma, those little charged batteries, the ATP and NADPH, have just been delivered, and they're here to do the actual building. This is the synthesis part of photosynthesis. And you know, the ridiculously complex process we're about to talk about was actually mapped out by a chemist named Melvin Calvin. Right after World War II, he used brand new radioisotope technology to actually trace the path that a single carbon atom takes inside a plant. It was a massive discovery, and it won him the Nobel Prize. And what he discovered is what we now call the Calvin cycle. This is the assembly line. It's this brilliant, self-sustaining chemical loop that takes the energy from those ATP and NADPH batteries and uses it to grab carbon dioxide right out of the air and turn it into sugar, plant food.
So how does this assembly line actually work?
Well, the whole thing kicks off with a very special worker molecule, an enzyme called rubisco. And this is no small-time player. Rubisco is the single most abundant protein on the entire planet. And its one job, right here, is to reach out and grab a CO2 molecule from the air. Then the energy from our batteries is used to power up the process and transform it. Finally, a sugar molecule is made, and the whole cycle resets itself to grab another CO2. It just goes on, turn after turn, churning out the sugar that builds that 20-ton oak tree.
But wait, the story doesn't quite end there, because nature is always innovating. For some plants, especially the ones that live in really hot, dry places, there's a problem with this assembly line, and evolution came up with a really clever hack to fix it.
So here's the fascinating twist. That all-important worker, rubisco, the most common protein on Earth, remember, is actually kind of inefficient. It's slow, and even worse, under hot, dry conditions, it gets confused. Instead of grabbing carbon dioxide, it sometimes accidentally grabs an oxygen molecule instead. This glitch is called photorespiration, and it's super wasteful. It doesn't make any sugar, and it actually costs the plant precious energy, slowing everything down.
And this is where that hack comes in. Certain plants, like corn and sugarcane, have evolved a totally different system called the C4 pathway. You can think of it like a turbocharger for a car engine. It actually pumps and concentrates CO2 into special cells right around rubisco. With so much CO2 packed in there, it becomes almost impossible for rubisco to make a mistake and grab an oxygen. This makes these C4 plants incredibly efficient, especially in those hot, sunny climates where other plants would be wasting a ton of energy on that photorespiration glitch.
Okay, we have been deep in the weeds. Literally, down in the microscopic world of the cell. Now it's time to zoom all the way back out and really appreciate the absolutely colossal impact this one process has on our entire planet. Every single year, photosynthesis creates over 100 billion tons of carbohydrates across the globe. Just try to picture that number. It's almost unimaginable. And that stuff forms the very foundation of pretty much every ecosystem.
So when you boil it all down, photosynthesis gives the world two profound gifts. First, it creates the energy base for every food web on the planet. I don't care if you're eating a salad or a cheeseburger, the energy in that food ultimately traces right back to sunlight that was captured by a plant. And second, as just a little byproduct, it releases the oxygen that fills our atmosphere. It literally created the world we live in and allows us to breathe. And that leaves us with one final and pretty crucial thought. This one tiny molecular process happening in every green leaf powers our entire world, from the air we breathe to the food we eat. So what happens if we break it?